Finally we get to the wedding, and see more of the flash forward. Like in season 1 we get bit by bit new pieces of the puzzle. Now we know why she is on the Grayson yacht, because they make some kind of a honeymoon cruise with all the family members, and we get to see the bullet wounds whose location will play a bigger role later. About Lydia again, it is interesting that they made up that list. Most of the names we never get to see or hear of again. They obviously still did not decide yet how long Emily's revengenda would last. Even though her outward appearances tell us otherwise, Lydia seems to be pretty much desperate, trying to blackmail Emily again. She is really lucky that Lydia never found out who really served on that Grayson Sylvester party, but her stirring up trouble was another bad sign after Victoria telling her that she would not attend the wedding in the last episode. Maybe it would have been better to call the whole thing off. It is very much like with Tyler and their engagement party in season 1. She had come too far to turn back now, so Emily is desperately trying to keep her things together. But Victoria and Lydia does not make it easy. At least Conrad plays by Emily's rules and is easy to manipulate. I know he cannot possibly know how wrong he is, but I like how Emily mocks him by saying her father would share her feelings for him. It is interesting that when he is talking about Victoria, her eyes gets that evil look again. You can see the difference, as if Emily does know she has to take Conrad down because he was the mastermind behind her father's trial. But she does not hate him as much as Victoria. With her it is really personal, even more after everything she does to her in this and the next season. Conrad may be her enemy, but with him they are far less hurt feelings and this turmoil of emotions involved than with his wife. Like Takeda pointed out in season 1, it is actually her emotions, but this time her hate, that destines her mission to fail. Her plan might be good, but she did not think it through cause there were too many variables in it. Daniel was still a wild card because he was not fully on board with the wedding. What she would have noticed if she would not have been occupied with all the other obstacles, namely Lydia and Victoria. About her plan with Patrick. I know it is after all a family show, and in American TV shows family ties always play a big role. But I still do not get how bringing Patrick back should make Victoria change her mind. Conrad is right to amplify Emily's request by threatening him, cause that is the only language Victoria understands. About the details of Emily's plan, from the moment they made us watch how the plan should unfold, I knew something would go terribly wrong. It just seemed too smoothly, and again there were too much little details involved that could go wrong. And even if anything would have gone as planned that night, how could she be so certain that Victoria would confess against Conrad? By the way, she could have just confessed his crimes from season 1 and 2. That would have been enough to keep him locked away for several years, so she would not have to implicate herself, and still the David Clarke story would not have been touched. But after seeing again how everything went down, I understand why Emily was going after Lydia again. If it was not for her, the plan would have not gone down this way. Showing Victoria the photo and making her confront Emily was the first disturbance, and if she had not talked with Victoria what Daniel overheard, they had not this fight with the almost deadly outcome. Anyway, Lydia is really a pain in the ass in her last episodes. About the annoying photo and Lydia blackmailing her. I always thought that she was lucky. Lydia only wants Conrad and her house back. Unlike Margot, she has no interest to ask why Emily is so eager to keep this photo and her appearance at that Grayson party a secret. Lydia just assumes that it was a coincidence, or at least that Emily was spying on possible targets for her con. But it never occurred to her that there could be more to the story. So it seemed easy for Emily to get her out of the way by giving her the house she longer needed. After all, she wanted to disappear with Aiden after everything was done. A huge mistake, cause she underestimated the renewed friendship, or at least partnership, between Lydia and Victoria. And the vindictive streak Lydia has since Emily made her leave the Hamptons for the first time. She waited long to take revenge on Emily. And since she is back together with Conrad, this girl is now the only target of her wrath. By the way, I love this simple balk and white top. Again, a subtle hint to her status being the good and bad of the show. About Emily's goodbye to Jack. Again, one of my favorite scenes between the two, even though they fight this hard. I love Jack's quote that she has taken everything from him. 'Cause this is more than true. With telling him the truth, she even stole his happy childhood memories. And after Nolan and Aiden, he is the one who can analyze her the best, 'cause he sees right through her manipulative mind. Maybe he is a bit too harsh and unfair because it seems as if she is trying her best to make this a genuine farewell. Telling him about her promise to Formander is her way of leaving nothing unsaid and putting all cards on the table. But he is right as well. She just doing this right now because she did not took the time to press pause and have a real conversation with him. Not only about her plans so that he is not in the loop anymore, but to talk things through and give him some kind of closure. I love their hug and the rapid change in tone and atmosphere. They have not that much calm and caring moments like this. Always his anger and hates break through. Understandable if you think about how Emily treats him, but it always hits me how hard and unforgiving he can be with her. And her quote about Formander is just so sad. I think besides losing Takeda and Aiden, this is the thing she regrets the most. That she manipulated this sweet girl to help her and could not protect her from the Graysons. Because at the beach wedding in season 2 you could see that she was giving Jack up and really wanted the two to be happy. She did not plan to sacrifice Formander even though she always knew that this was a likely possibility. About Emily looking at her childhood photos again. I know I am repeating myself, but this would have had more impact with some happy flashback from her times with David at the beach house. I can only assume they had to cut budget in some ways, cause the wedding must have been the most expensive thing to shoot. Not only because of the fashion but because a water shoot was on schedule again. Anyway, Emily's performance in this and how they shot this scene always hits me. Her hiding behind this armchair looking so small and being so unlikely emotional. The way she holds her head and is looking into the camera. I think they even planned to cut in a flashback and decided against it. Maybe they wanted to make the collage at the wedding when she is speaking her wedding vow be more effective. For me this scene is really sad because hiding that photo again, which obviously means the world to her, shows again how isolated she is. Even though she has Nolan and Aiden, it is her loss alone and she is the one who hides her life away and cannot overcome this burden. Until her vendetta is over and she can finally end the grieving cycle. Now finally to the wedding. They made us wait long enough. More than half of the episode is over till we see the first ones dressed up for the event. But it was refreshing to see Victoria giving full in her hatred for Emily. Insulting her that way by ignoring that they are all here to welcome Emily and the Grayson family, not Patrick, was maybe the most bad thing she could think of besides not attending the wedding at all. She seems to be determined to ruin it if she was forced to endure it. So I was very much disappointed that as Nolan glanced to her by those famous words and she did not even flinch. Another thing I hated, but I think they just had to do it, is that we see the most important dress only but by bit. Here in this scene we see only the first half that shows off how thin Emily is. I must admit in the first couple of seasons I always thought she was a little too slim for my taste. Sure, this sporty figure fits for a trained woman. But I like her more at the end of the last season when she looks more like a normal, weighted woman. But the dress without the veil and this silly overskirt looks very elegant. I love the necklace and that it is off shoulder. Maybe not fitting for a wedding in church, but it looks nice on her. About Emily's and Charlotte's conversation. This made me even more sad how Charlotte depicts Emily as a future mom. The way she talks about her baby and baby Carl growing up together and mending fences between the two families is such a sweet illusion. I think that was always something Emily had pushed away and kept a guarded secret in her mind. A future with Jack as Carl's stepmother and having a family of her own with Jack living happy together in the beach house. And that Charlotte is so excited about being an aunt again breaks my heart. 'Cause for her this whole pregnancy and miscarriage lie really hits home. But they made us Emily fans happy by letting Aiden see and admire her in this beautiful wedding gown. Though I must admit that Emily Van Camp's actual wedding dress was even more beautiful and fitting for her. By the way, they choose the air date of this episode as their actual wedding day. A nice reminiscence to the fact that Emily and Joshua Bowman fell in love on the show. I am so happy for them even more as they have now a family of their own with little Iris. But back to Emily and Aiden. I always enjoyed this scene with Aiden putting her garter on. This shows clearly the difference between her relationship with Daniel and Aiden in this season. With Aiden it is real passion and love, while the love for Daniel has dried out and she only is repelled by him and later full of hatred. It was also an elegant way to make us aware of her exit strategy with this ruby panic button. And gave them the opportunity to show us the detail of this beautiful lace fabric which the camera just cannot capture that good. But what I really hate about the dress that it has all those layers. Maybe that was bridal fashion back in the days, but for me the simple gown looks far better without this skirt that seems to be just there to make the dress look more impressive on camera. And why did they give her a veil if she is not wearing it properly? The whole purpose of the veil is to give the husband the chance to unveil her face, so she should have put it on or leave it. And again they did not make her hair. If they gave her an elegant updo or some curls they could have spared the veil. She is also not wearing that much jewelry. Just this little bracelet. Must be due to the fact what she is planning to do after the wedding. But since they got back to the manor before entering the yacht, she surely could have changed dresses. Like other brides do. Have some spectacular and mostly uncomfortable dress for the wedding ceremony. And another more comfy but still elegant dress for the party in which she can dance. But I still enjoy Nolan's quote marks again, the different intentions. Nolan is still helping her for fun. Her vendetta is some kind of entertainment for him and makes his life not as dull. While Emily is determined to do everything in her power to make those people pay and finally get her vengeance. By the way, I was happy that Nolan was the one who walks her down the aisle. For a moment in her conversation with Conrad, the first thought they would switch it to Conrad. Which would have been more than inappropriate given their backstory. So we had a nice full circle when, spoiler alert, Nolan is her bridal father in both ceremonies with Daniel and Jack. After the first watch I hate all those disturbances, but I guess that it is with those TV shows. They always try to delay things and keep the tension. 'Cause we do not know by first watching it what will happen. And Lydia wearing red is again a literally red flag for Emily's plan. By the way, I love their wedding vows. They are very much distinctive. Daniel is like the typical man who underlines his commitment and that he will stand by her no matter what. The writers try here to make us not forget how Emily tricked him to marry her and what this means for Daniel and his feelings towards Emily. 'Cause this will play a huge role in their fight later. While Emily's vow underlines her objections getting her mission accomplished with taken down Victoria. I must admit that this collage had not the desired effect with me. I understand what they were trying to do here, but I still feel sorry for Daniel. 'Cause he did not deserve this treatment. Before their War of Roses in this season, he really seemed to be a decent guy who tried to make it right. He broke with his family, and besides his help for Conrad covering up that deadly accident, Daniel did not interfere in any Grayson business anymore. Instead he concentrated on that magazine with Margot and seemed to have found the right way to put his past behind and move on with Emily. I love the double meaning of her vow, and with the flashbacks it gets clear that she is telling this to David and Formander. But since we all have seen and in some kind lived it by watching Formander die, for example, this collage was not that much heartbreaking. Maybe they put in for the new fans of the show, who did not know the background and needed more information to understand why she is doing all this, and also to justify what she is doing to Daniel. About Daniel drinking again. This was also a warning sign that Emily did not notice, how Daniel is getting drunk again. She has seen in season 1 how violent he gets when he is drunk, so she could have guessed that filling himself up could mean danger to her and her plan. And it shows how desperate Daniel must feel. Already he feels trapped with Emily and cannot do anything about it, besides putting up a show for the cameras that cover this for his magazine. About Nolan's and Emily's dance. This is my favorite scene from the wedding because it is so bittersweet. First, Nolan's elegant request to dance with Emily. And of course his last words, "Long live David Clarke." I like how intimate this scene looks even though they are on a dance floor at a wedding this big, but showing us only their faces makes this scene so private. I cannot remember if I had in mind that we could see them all together for the last time at first watching this episode. I think I always wondered how they would pull it off. Obviously her plan would not succeed cause we are only halfway through the season. But if she really ran away with Aiden, how would they hold contact? Would they have shown us the life in the Hamptons, and Emily's life with Aiden at the Maldives? Could have been interesting seeing them actually living together. And surely they would have found a reason for them to come back cause something happened with Jack or Charlotte. Anyway, I think I did not thought about it that much cause I saw this season in a row on DVD. And not on TV with the usual one episode per week. But what I like with this story arc is that they really take advantage of this whole pain of parting mood. You feel how much Emily means to her friends and how they all gonna miss her, and with her it is the same. Even though she does not let it show that much, but she told even Aiden how much she will miss Nolan and Charlotte. About Daniel calling Sara from his wedding. Bad enough for Emily that he cannot let go of Sara, but it is also bad for her. Cause he robs her of the change to move on and find a man who is unattached. And I am still not convinced that this ex-girlfriend, which was merely a summer fling, should be the one for him. Maybe Emily is not the one either, but Daniel seems to need a woman who can be both strong-willed like Emily and his mother, and determined to lead him, but also soft and caring like Sara seems to be. About Daniel and Emily talking and kissing. For Emily fans, this must have been the perfect scene. Daniel assuring Emily he wants to be a better man, and then their kiss. On the surface the wedding really looks like a dream coming true. But it is great that they capture all those fine flaws that make you think something is not right here. And Emily speaking in code, maybe even some kind of apologizing. Daniel cannot understand that, no, but in her mind she speaks about all the things she had to put him through in order to get through with this ill-conceived plan. What I enjoyed on second and third watch is that they took the time to show us how Conrad changes his mind about Lydia. Seems as now that Victoria has left him alone he feels lonely and maybe wants to tease her little with his former affair. I love that the bold colors of the dresses really clash. That yellow-green of Lydia looks like a mixture of poison and vomit. And of course Conrad bringing her back is an elegant way to stir up trouble for Emily, cause so far nothing went as planned beside the wedding ceremony, which was the easiest and most unimportant part of her plan. About Sara trying to hook up with Jack. This scene was really embarrassing for both them. But this could have been an interesting pair since they both been screwed by Emily. I guess Sara is not his type, and because both were drinking so much while watching the wedding of the year, he did not want to use her that way. Jack can be a real gentleman if he wants to. About Nolan and Patrick again. Though I prefer him with Louise, this relationship was something like a mirror of Emily's relationship with Daniel in season 1. They were like Romeo and Juliet. A very dysfunctional but passionate pair. In comparison to the flash forward of season 1 and 2, this one was different. This time we knew who would be shot, but not if the one was dead. Unlike in the previous seasons where we had to guess who was dead and not who shot him. And since we had been told what Emily's plan was for the night, we could exactly see on which steps the plan went wrong. Mostly because the people Emily wanted to control were not where they were supposed to be. Especially Daniel and Victoria. About the call and Daniel's reaction. Maybe they thought hearing about Emily's lies would not have been enough for him to shoot her. But I think this misunderstanding about Sara was not necessary. I mean, she was so calm and composed when they broke up. And with Jack she even made jokes and tried to throw herself to him. So she maybe was desperate and alone, but surely not that desperate to kill herself. After all the hell she survived with the car crash, you would assume that Sara has a strong will to live. And a little heartache could not make her that desperate. But again you see that Daniel has not that much insight in people. About Lydia showing Victoria the photo with Emily. Since she first found that picture, I was wondering what would happen if Victoria had seen it. I mean, in some ways it proves her suspicions. And is also a good cover for Emily, cause only the long-known suspicions she had from the start can be confirmed by this photo. As long as she does not know that the photo shows Amanda Clarke before she became Emily Thorne, everything will be alright. What is interesting about the scene in which Victoria confronts Emily is that she is not pretending anymore. She tells Victoria everything right away. I only can assume that she thought her plan would succeed and she would not have to face the repercussions of her confession. 'Cause more than ever till this season Emily shows her real face and how mean and ruthless she can be. I love this scene so much because they really goad each other in this. And for the first time in the show, both women tell themselves with absolute openness what they think about each other. You can really feel all of Emily's resentment when she talks like that with Victoria. But what still hits me is Victoria's quote that she does not care or feel anything for Emily. I know she is telling all this because she thinks Emily is one of the many con artists that want to participate on the Graysons' wealth and status. But in my opinion, even if she knew now who Emily really is, what she says would still be true. She never wanted to establish a real relationship with little Amanda. Little girl or grown-up woman, Amanda is a worthless competitor for the affection of her son and lover.
I heard everything.
And finally, the moment we all have been waiting for. Here comes the one who really shot Emily. I think Victoria was the most obvious choice, so most people thought it could not have been her. And since Lydia already showed Victoria the photo to cause new trouble for Emily, she was out of suspicion, too. If I had not known better, I would have thought Charlotte would have heard about her lie and pulled the trigger. In anger that Sara and her brother Daniel had to suffer so much when he did not have to. And of course because of her personal feelings about Emily's lie. Which surely hits home after her miscarriage and her joy becoming an aunt again. Daniel was never my first guess, though we had enough hints since he was drinking again and had after Victoria the biggest motive. I must admit, as they showed us here how they both look at the gun and Daniel is finally taking it, my first thought was, damn, why did she pick it up faster? I mean, not to shoot him but to have the upper hand and control the situation. Since looking at the barrel of a gun would surely have calmed Daniel down and they could have a proper conversation. Instead she is in defense and just can react to all his accusations. Which are fully true, but surely no reason to shoot someone. And again they show what a coward Daniel is. Instead of facing what he did, he throws the gun away and leaves it be, showing up with everyone else as if he had just heard about Emily being missing. About Jack and Aiden only finding Emily's dress. Smart of her to get rid of the dress, so she has not that much weight on her with that saturated fabric. What I hate in this and in the next scenes with Aiden and Jack is their competition around Emily. It seems only 5 seconds ago that Jack hated her to the core of his heart. And now he is competition with Aiden about who knows her better and cares more about Emily. I mean, it was Emily's and Aiden's plan and Jack was not part of it. So why is he meddling in now? Anyway, the next couple of episodes are some of my favorites for a reason. But that is not Jack's presence in it, sorry. And here is now the promised slideshow with stills from the wedding and real pictures from Emily Van Camp's and Joshua Bowman's wedding in 2018.
If I told you this was only gonna hurt,
if I want to, that the fire's gonna burn,
would you walk in? Would you let me do it first?
Do it all in the name of love. Would you let me lead you even when you're blind?
In the darkness, in the middle of the night,
in the silence, when there's no one by your side, you call in the name of love. In the name of love. Would you rise up, come and meet me in the sky?
Would you trust me when we jump in from the heights? Would you fall
in the name of love? When there's madness, when there's poison in your head,
when this sadness leaves you broken in your bed,
I will hold you in the depths of your despair. And it's all in the name of love.